What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the all-new 2020 Toyota GR Supra. Huge thanks to Toyota for inviting me out here to the Supra launch in Virginia. We're at Summer Point Motorsports Park, and so we get some track time as well as some street time here. But anyway, here it is. It is back, the Supra. Just the fact that I am standing next to a vehicle I can call the Supra is an amazing thing on its own. Add to that the fact that it is so good looking. So of course, it was heavily inspired by the FT1 concept that was shown several years ago now at the Detroit Motor Show, and it looks so good in person. So, you know, if you haven't seen one of these in person, you might not get all the dimensions of this vehicle. I mean, it is just so curvy and pointy, and it's just got so much going on, but in a beautiful way. I think it is super cool. So right up front there, you have that pointy nose that I particularly love, and the headlights that are almost identical to the FT1, which is really impressive. They got that 6 LED headlamp setup, 3 for the low beams, 3 for the high. I love this long hood you have here too. It's so good looking. The only little thing I can complain about is that a lot of the vents and stuff you see are fake. Like this hood vent here is blocked off. And supposedly there's ways to unblock those and stuff if you want, but from the factory here, this is all blocked off. There's also one down by the doors that's blocked off, and that's a little unfortunate. It'd be cool if all the stuff you saw was functional, but it still does look very cool. Coming down to the sides here, this is the launch edition one, so that's why we have these all black wheels. Usually it's going to be a combination of a polished and blacked out look, but they're 19 inches here, and they look really great. You have the red calipers, which is also a launch edition thing. They will be painted calipers on the premium ones and unpainted gray on the base models. Anyway, going down to the sides, it is just a wonderful thing to take in. First off, on the top, you have the double bubble roof there to give you additional helmet space, you know, when you're sitting in the vehicle, or headroom if you just are driving on the streets, and that's great. It really sets it apart. I also love the blacked out A-pillar here, and then just, you know, very short doors. This whole vehicle is smaller than you might even expect. So overall, actually, the wheelbase is 4 inches shorter than an 86, a Toyota, you know, 86 Super BRZ, whatever you want to call it. This is a shorter wheelbase than even those cars, which, as you know, are very small. Now, overall, the Supra here is 6 inches longer than an 86, and it's actually about 3 inches wider. So, you know, it's definitely a more muscular stance, but it's a little stubbier as far as the wheelbase goes, which is really interesting. So, whenever you compare these two cars side by side, they're actually very close in their overall size. Now, proportions are a little different. You know, you have a longer hood here on the Supra and stuff, which gives it a more dramatic appearance, and a stubbier back end too, which I love. I love the hips on this car. I mean, it is insane how much curvature you have there on the quarter panel area. It is really cool looking. And again, whether you're following behind this vehicle or just walking up to it in 3 dimensions, it's like, wow, this thing really is just like bulging out of its skin almost. It's really cool. And then going out back there, again, just so many curves. You have, you know, that spoiler there, which looks really good. And I love how it kind of harkens to the Mark IV Supras and their spoilers, and that's kind of what they're going for there. Otherwise, you know, you have this large dual exhaust there with the polished tips that look great. I also love the little like Formula One style light there you have down below as well. That's very cool. And yeah, it just looks really good. I also love, you know, like it's got mild like front lip and rear lip there. Nothing overkill, but just everything about this car is just so tasteful and good looking to me. I think they just knocked it out of the park as far as styling goes. Right, for the interior of the Supra, well, it is a very sweet, but so much of it is BMW parts bin. Now, that's not a bad thing because, you know, BMW makes luxury cars. They're very nice vehicles, and so I don't think that's a bad thing. It just means that if you're a Toyota fan, you're not going to see anything very familiar. The infotainment system is going to be totally foreign to you. All the controls are going to be totally foreign, but that's okay. It's not too hard to learn. But anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats. Now, this is the launch edition one that I'm in currently, so that's how you get this red leather that not only is on the seats, but on the doors, the steering wheel, the center column here. Everything is this red leather. It's a really nice shade of red. It's not super in your face. It's a little more subtle and really beautiful. You can only get this with the launch edition if you get the black or the white launch edition ones. And so looks really good though. And anyway, I also filmed some B-roll of a black interior, and so that's what I'll be using as well for some of this as I go through. But anyway, these seats are really comfortable, like really nice, soft, comfortable seats. I think they're actually softer than than, you know, like what you would get with a BMW a lot of times. At least something like the M2, I think, has definitely firmer seats than this. This feels really great, and the best thing about it, adjustable bolstering here on the sides, which I absolutely love. So you can get it as tight or as loose as you want, and you know, going all the way up to like the tightest setting here. I mean, even a smaller guy like me, it gets nice and snug. And we even did some laps around the track, and it really hugs you in place very, very well for track driving. Very comfortable seats, absolutely love them. They're also memory, and they're heated as well. Unfortunately, no cooling. That would be a nice feature, but no cooling seats here, but still nice to have the heat. Next is the steering wheel here in the Supra, which is really great, and this is unique. Although you see some BMW buttons here on it, and also BMW paddle shifters, this is a unique rimmed wheel, and as you can see, it is much thinner than BMW's massive wheels that, you know, you have to be like, have lumberjack hands to get your hands all the way around those wheels half the time. This is a nice smaller wheel, especially at the 9 and 3 grip. It really tapers down nicely. Great little 10 and 2 notches, but again, not overkill. Doesn't feel like you're holding a Big Mac like in an M wheel. I mean, this is, you know, a nice smaller feeling to it. No flat bottom or anything, but just a nice smaller wheel. I really like the way that it looks, and you have some stitching here on it, and overall a really nice steering wheel. The paddle shifters here are the same as other BMWs, where it's nice metal on the front, but the back is rubberized, and I wish that was a little higher quality feeling, but we're in a Toyota, so I can't critique this because this isn't a BMW. So totally acceptable for a Toyota, and you know, nice to have the paddle shifters. They're pretty big, and so yeah, overall a really nice setup there. Next are the gauges here in the Supra, which are pretty much totally unique to the Supra. Now, you have some familiar fonts and stuff from BMW, but all unique to the Supra here, and I really like the way that it looks. At first, it seemed a little cluttered, but the more that I'm looking at it, the more that I'm getting used to it and really enjoying it. You have a nice large tachometer there right in the middle. On the left, you have your digital speedometer. Now, on the right-hand side, you just have a few things. It's more limited than I was expecting because you have a heads-up display here in the premium ones. Now, if you didn't go for the heads-up display and you went for the base version of the Supra, then, you know, you might have a little bit more in there, but it defaults to putting that stuff in the heads-up display instead for vehicles that have that. And otherwise, you know, you have your trip information, all the basics down there, and that little line. But I also love the bar style for the fuel and coolant, although it's not very precise. That's the only thing I can say about that. Obviously, you have your fuel range readouts and stuff if you want that, but I do wish that those gauges were a little bit more exact than just having, you know, a handful of bars there and that's it. But overall, still very exciting gauges. Whenever you put it into the sport mode, then you actually get a little bit more of like an orange space before the actual red line itself, and just a slightly different appearance to it. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, well, it's very driver-centric. Right up top here, you have this very slim 8.8-inch infotainment display, which is an iDrive unit. It has slightly different menus here that, you know, the way Toyota has skinned it a little bit, but it still is, you know, it's great to have the touchscreen capability as well as having the iDrive controller here if you want it, you know, for those who don't like fingerprints on the screen or whatever. And this is a pretty nice infotainment system. It has Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto, unfortunately, which is kind of a bummer, but that's, I think, all of BMW still doesn't do Android Auto. But, you know, it is just nice that it's wireless Apple CarPlay as well, which is a first for Toyota, and that's just because that's what all BMWs have. If you have CarPlay, it's wireless here. Otherwise, iDrive is a little complicated, especially if you're used to, like, even Toyota's newest, you know, their large 8-inch square type screen. You know, those are a lot easier to navigate. This is a lot more complicated, a lot more sub-menus, a few more clicks to get to things. Some people really love this iDrive system. I personally think it's overly complicated and could be simplified a lot more. And I think Toyota kind of did simplify it a little bit. This seems a little more manageable to me, just from my first impressions here with it. But it's still, you know, takes a few clicks to change radio stations. Now, there is a tune rocker down here as well as a small little volume knob. And so it's good to have those. But, you know, if you want to go in and like spin through, you know, you have to actually go into a submenu to do that, and use the iDrive controller for that kind of stuff. And you know, everything else looks nice. You have the split screen capabilities, and there's even like gauges. You can show your real-time horsepower and torque outputs, which is cool to have. And so you have some cool little driver things like that. But otherwise, just all your basic settings and stuff in there. And that's also where you're going to configure, like, you know, there's a normal and sport mode here, but then there's also the individual mode, which again comes from BMW. And that's great though, because it means you can set up things individually. So if you don't want everything in sport mode, you want to have a softer suspension, but you want to have the faster shifts of the sport, you know, for the sport setting for the transmission, you can do that kind of stuff and tweak it, which is really great. And so there's a really nice infotainment screen. Now, if you go for the base model, the non-premium Supra, then you get a 6.5-inch screen, and it does not have Apple CarPlay. You also don't get the JBL stereo. It's like, I think 500 watts here in this. I think you instead have like a 250 watt stereo instead. And it's a 6.5-inch, you know, like a base BMW display instead. And that's a bummer you don't get Apple CarPlay. But if you do want the base one, you can upgrade to a navigation and JBL package, and then that gives you this big screen again. So that is certainly an option. Speaking of other things with the base vehicle will have leather sides to the seats, but an Alcantara middle. And so that's another, you know, cost-cutting measure they have. But anyway, moving on here from the infotainment and stuff, we have this row of preset buttons, which is a trademark BMW thing, and a little volume knob, but a really nice feel to all these controls. Same thing goes for the climate controls down here, which are straight out of a BMW and very easy to use. Also, while we're in this area, I also have to say it's really great. You have this whole knee area here on the transmission tunnel that's nicely padded and is really great for resting your knee on, because you don't have a ton of, you know, it's a little bit tighter here. It's a cockpit style feeling in the Supra, and so you are going to be resting your knee on this a lot more than you would be in, you know, like the transmission tunnel of an SUV or something. So it is nice that this is padded. That is really a crucial thing and really great to have. Anyway, coming down, you just have a few other buttons for sport mode and safety systems and the iDrive controller and the very BMW shifter as well. As far as storage space in the Supra, it's not great even as far as coupes go. So, you know, and it's actually even a little bit less in some areas than the 86. For example, in the doors here, you have a very small little pocket that wouldn't fit a map, will certainly not fit a bottle, but you could fit, you know, a couple sticks of gum or something in there. That's about it. Pretty small and useless, unfortunately, but nice to have something, I guess. Coming over to the center here, in the premiums, you have this wireless charging pad, which is great to have. Otherwise, that would just be, you know, an empty bin there. And then you also find a USB jack and a power outlet in there, and so great to have all those right out in the open. Coming back, you have the center armrest, which is pretty softly padded. I noticed that one of the other vehicles had a softer padding than this one does. They're all pre-production, so probably slightly different. This one's a little firmer than I would like, but again, I experienced the other one and that was a little bit softer. And then you have two cup holders built into that. This doesn't open up or anything. This is all fixed, so you have no hidden storage in the Supra, which is a notable thing. Everything is out in the open. There's nowhere to conceal anything, you know, if you want to hide away valuables or something like that, because you have this other little tiny pocket in the back here where you can fit the key or something small like that that will not fit a smartphone or anything, too small for that. But, you know, nice to have that additional little cubby there to, you know, fit small things. But, you know, as far as storage space, it's not going to be the easiest vehicle to live with if, you know, you carry lots of stuff with you. But for people who are used to like a BRZ or an 86, those didn't have any kind of concealed armrest or anything either, so you should feel right at home in this. Trunk space in the Supra is actually pretty good. So it's interesting because it's a hatch, which means you have all the hatchback versatility, but it is very interesting with the way it's cut out there. So, you know, kind of cuts into the trunk space a lot. And so the opening is pretty narrow. And so fitting large objects will be a little tricky, but then as you get into the trunk, it actually is very wide out towards the rear of the trunk there. And so that means I think you could probably fit a golf bag in there. I think it's probably what they did that for, but it's going to be a little bit of a tight squeeze, and otherwise, you know, it kind of again narrows down towards the back there a little bit, but it's interesting. This is set up Corvette style, where you have no actual wall dividing the trunk from the interior here, and so it's a pass through, so that's cool. If you want to reach into the trunk to get something, you can. You also will see with the JBL system here, these two large speakers here on this little mini wall we have, but it's a good amount of space nonetheless. I think, you know, especially if you remove that cargo cover and we're okay blocking your rear vision a little bit, you could certainly stack several suitcases in here with ease. But again, being only a two-seater, I think you should be able to, you know, have plenty of space to fit all the luggage you need for two people. All right, so let's start up and go for a drive. The Supra here has a BMW styled key, but has a red stripe here, and of course has the Toyota branding on it, and you know, some plastic buttons, nothing metal. Not quite as high quality feeling as a BMW key, but you know, obviously the same shape and mechanicals, but still a really great key. But of course, keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So just hit the metal engine start button here. It starts right up. It has a great sound. All right, right, so setting off in the 2020 Toyota Supra. I have been looking forward to this since the reveal back in January, and yeah, so first thing that I notice here about the Supra, well, I'm in normal mode now, which actually does make the exhaust a little bit quieter. So sport mode will give you heavier steering, sharper throttle, sharper shifts, as well as changing the tuning for the active differential there in the back, as well as the actual dual mode exhaust. It does actually have a flap, and that will open up and stay open more in sport than it does in the normal mode, which is very cool. Other things to notice, though, very touchy brakes here in the Supra. They bite down. So we have 4-piston Brembo calipers here up front, and then out back you have standard brakes. They're not, the bigger Brembos there, just single piston in the rear, but still really nice. Now, if you go for a base Supra, you get slightly smaller rear brakes, but that's just because they said you get more sustained, longer, track driving with the larger rear brakes there on the premium. So if you're going to do extended track driving, you can still drive the base one on track, but you get a lot more, I guess, durability out of the larger brakes there in the back if you go for the premium one. Other things, though, visibility here in the Supra is actually a little tricky, but it's not too bad. So you have pretty thick A-pillars here for a small vehicle like this. You have this little part here, this little triangle that kind of blocks it off, which isn't great, but it's not too bad. If you can have your seat up a little bit higher, then it's pretty easy to see forward. Thankfully, the mirror has enough space there, so it doesn't really block too much your view. And view forward is also good. You have a very long hood here, and I like how you can see the ridges of the hood, and it's a very cool look. But just cruising here in normal mode, it's a very refined thing to drive. I'm just cruising along here in 7th gear at 37 miles an hour, and it's very relaxed, it's very quiet, the exhaust is pretty subdued. But I'm going to put it up into the sport mode here, and it immediately gives me a downshift here, and much more responsive. And then listen to that. All the crackles and pops you could want. It's great. Another thing I really like about these sport modes, you have firmer shifts than you usually do. So the ZF8 speed, can be nice and buttery smooth and relaxed when you're in normal mode. But whenever you are in the sport mode here, I've noticed that it's a little more abrupt with its shifts, where it's got a little bit more of a jolt to it than you have whenever you're in normal mode, which is great. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. Oh man, this thing is a rocket. Wow, it really got up and went. Wow, and it even lifts up the nose a little bit. Really, you feel it. It's just furious the way that it accelerates. It's great. Oh man, so the Supra here has the 3-liter inline-six, the B58 motor from BMW, but has been worked over by a Toyota, it seems, slightly, although they won't give specifics. Anyway, regardless, it's a twin-scroll single-turbo unit. It does 335 horsepower, 365 pound-feet of torque, and 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds if you do launch control, which this has. I'm just doing rolling starts, though. We'll do a manual one this time. Let's see how that does. Oh, wheel spin! Oh, and it is super quick with its shifts. You do not need any kind of dual clutch. This ZF8 speed is fantastic. But yeah, 4.1 seconds. That should really put into perspective how fast this is. Because you look at the spec sheet, 335 horsepower in a lot of cars is a yawn number. That's not like, wow, 335 horsepower. In these Hellcat days we're living in, that's not remarkable. But the 4.1 seconds 0 to 60 is the takeaway here, because this is such a light vehicle. These only weigh 3,397 pounds. Now that's the only number they gave us. I believe that's probably for a base model. I'm sure once you go up to the premium one here, it'll be a little bit heavier than that, but that is still really light. And so we got a couple of corners here, still in manual mode. Downshifts are pretty quick, and it is so flat. We got some standing water here. We gotta slow down to go around, but oh, it's squirming the back end a little bit. I think because the tires are probably a tiny bit damp now from driving through that, but it really wants to step out. You can kind of feel that. Obviously in sport mode, you still have some stability control, traction control, although they are more lenient. But I mean, the grip you have here is really phenomenal too. So we're running these 19-inch wheels with 255 wide tires in the front, 275s in the rear. They're Michelin Pilot Super Sport tires, not the new P4S tires. So, but it is still a ton ton of grip, and I mean the Super Sports are still fantastic, amazing tires, but 275s in the rear, that's crazy. That's what my Mustang Bullet runs with 480 horsepower. So imagine, you know, just how much grip you have here with this. It is really remarkable. But let's do another manual acceleration here. Okay, so, oh, there's a little bit of squirming going on. Oh, this thing, it wants to play. It is very playful. I think part of that is that shorter wheelbase. You got, you know, 4 inches shorter there. I think that is certainly what does it. Oh, and those crackles and pops. I could listen to that all day. Very quick downshifts. This thing, and it's surprisingly loud for a factory exhaust. That's one thing that, I mean, obviously that flap, which helps, but it is still just like crazy how loud this is, which is great. One thing I will say is here in sport mode, I'll see if I can try and do it. It has a little bit of drone to it, but you listen to those crackles and pops, I don't think you really are going to mind. And then again, all you have to do is hit the sport mode, turn it off, and then it's quiet again. So you can have, you know, your loud aftermarket droney exhaust if you want. Now, it's not bad. It is not as bad as, you know, like some truly aftermarket stuff. It's just a hint of drone, so I don't want to play that up too much because it is very minor drone, but it does have that. So you probably wouldn't want to daily drive in sport mode constantly unless you're used to an aftermarket exhaust. But they did this exhaust so well that I don't know how many people actually are going to need an exhaust. I know there's some people that it never can be loud enough and they just want straight pipes, all the things, straight pipes, and that's fine. But I think for most people that actually live with this vehicle, this is going to be fantastic. It's having the dual mode stuff that, you know, lots of manufacturers are doing these days is fantastic, because you can have the best of both worlds whenever you want it at the push of a button. It's a great thing, and so yeah, it's really fantastic. So that was my first little impression here on the street. I'm going to do more street driving later, but now I'm going to hit the track and see how it does there. Some more back roads here, and I just got out of driving the Supra on track a few times, and it's amazing how playful this car is. It really has a personality and a character, and you know, they set it up to be very neutral with this oversteer that you can immediately get, and it just, I think it's really the shorter wheelbase too than even like the 86 that makes this feel even more playful than the 86, and it's just, it's like the 86 and the BRZ, just at a higher level. You have higher speeds, you have more grips, you have higher limits, but it's phenomenal. It's honestly, and that's kind of what I went into this video hoping, is that this would just be like the ultimate faster, you know, a dream version of a BRZ or something, you know, on steroids. And it kind of is that. It's much, much more than that as well, but it's just so much fun. I mean, it's just so flat. The only thing I will say though is the steering is a little slower. It's 15 to 1 instead of, you know, like I think a BRZ, for example, is 13, and you have stuff like the Giulia, which I believe is 11, so it's much, much quicker than this. And so that's one thing I noticed on the track, is I was really sawing back and forth at the wheel and working the steering wheel a lot more than I would have liked to. So that's the only thing, but out on the road here, you know, it doesn't feel like it really holds it back. It just, you know, your inputs have to be a little more exaggerated than in something like a Giulia or, you know, one of those other, you know, really sharp sports cars like this. But this still, you know, it feels really good too. The weight isn't amazing, you know. I do feel the weight sometimes in some of the faster corners, and I wish it was maybe a tiny bit lighter, but you have so much power. Again, it's the way things are going. You can't have all the tech, you can't have all the safety and have a big motor and all that kind of stuff and still have a vehicle that's as light as a BRZ. It's just impossible without going to carbon fiber or something. So you know, I like that they kept this affordable, and that's really one of the last things I want to mention here about this vehicle is its affordability. You know, I know, you know, there's a lot of people that were wanting this thing to be $40,000 or something, and you know, these start at $49,990 before destination, and then this one is a launch edition, and then you can get also a driver assist package on top. That's the only package once you go up to these top trims, and so you can max out a Supra around 57. But even still, you know, I still think it's a phenomenal value, because when you look at the spec sheet and say, oh, this is only 335 horsepower, it feels so much faster than that. And like for example, a Nissan 370Z, those, I mean, feel much slower than this. I mean, this thing would blow the doors off of that. It's way faster than an STI or something like that, which is, you know, in the same 300 range, and it feels way faster than even an M2 to me. Now, the M2 I reviewed was a manual, so it's not an apples to apples comparison, but this is just, it's so much faster. And I know BMW has a reputation for underrating their engines, and I wonder if that same thing is applying to this Toyota version of this V58 motor as well, because I have a hard time believing it's only 335 horsepower, 365 pound-feet of torque. Now, it does come on super low torque. You know, you get max torque at 1,600 RPMs, and it carries all the way through the middle of the rev range. And then the horsepower, you make peak horsepower from 5,000 to 6,500 RPMs, and so it rewards you ringing it out too. So there's no dead spots in this engine. There is no lag. There is nothing about this end. There's no weak point in this engine. You have boatloads of torque in the beginning, and then once the torque starts to taper off, then you have boatloads of horsepower in the upper end, and it's really nicely tuned. I mean, there, I just punched it from, you know, like 3,500 RPMs, and it just takes off. I don't have to even downshift. I can sit in third gear, and it just goes at any RPM, and it's phenomenal. And then you just get those crackles and pops. It's like you have a firing squad behind you, just like constantly like gunfire galore. Like I said, it's not totally perfect. I wish the steering was a little quicker. It also could be a hair heavier as well, although it doesn't bother me, but it would be cool in sport mode for it to be a little heavier than it is. So I mean, there's a few little nitpicky things. You know, I'm being objective here. I'm not just being like a fanboy, but it's just so good. I mean, you know, if you watch this channel, I drive lots of sweet stuff. There's a lot of really impressive cars these days. We're spoiled for choice in these days we're living in. There's a lot of fun stuff, but of all the things that I've reviewed, I mean, I love my Mustang Bullet, to be a little personal here for a second, but if I wasn't driving that, I would probably have one of these. That's how much I love this. But while we're merging onto the highway, let's do another acceleration just for fun. It's just, I love this thing. Yeah, it's fantastic, guys. Yeah, it's, I don't know, like I said, I would have one. An M2 is, you know, fun, and if you really, I mean, that was like BMW's return. Like, the M2 is amazing fun, and has this character and personality, which is true. So take that and then make it even faster with this, even more playful with this shorter wheelbase, and it just, this car just feels so alive. Like, you cannot drive this car and be bored. There is no way you can do it unless you're in, you can take it out of sport mode, just chill and crank up the stereo or whatever. But if you're in sport mode, you're hearing crackles and pops almost constantly. You have a vehicle that's very lively with its handling. It's an absolute blast. It's got amazing handling on the track. That's one thing I just love, taking it around the track. It's a blast. It's also noteworthy that it is phenomenal as far as its endurance on track. And we were lapping them all day. I mean, they had people in those cars for probably 5 hours straight, just going around and around and around and around, and they were fine. You know, you had a little bit of brake fade, obviously, but the brakes never gave out. No cars went into limp mode. No one had any issues. Nothing. And there's a lot of track-oriented setups with other vehicles that go into limp mode, have issues, don't have enough cooling. This, you can flog it all day. It was 81 degrees today, sun shining, super hot day, and this thing, they perform flawlessly. And so, you know, I think Toyota went to great lengths to make sure that this is going to hold up and be reliable, and only time will tell, obviously, on all that. But so far, it seems very, very promising. The last little thing I want to mention, just from a consumer standpoint, is the fuel economy is actually not bad here either. So, you know, these are rated at 24 in the city, 31 on the highway, and 26 combined. And that's again, very impressive for, you know, a vehicle of this size, of this weight, with this 6-cylinder turbocharged engine. Beginning that is really impressive. That's what a lot of turbo 4-cylinders do in some vehicles as well. So I mean, it's pretty good as far as livability goes too. You know, I think visibility is pretty decent. I still wish there was more places to put things on this interior. That is one thing that, you know, I feel like could be improved. I wish they could maybe open up this armrest. I know there's probably some transmission stuff under there or something, but you know, so there are a few little things. It's not 100% perfect, but it is so good. that, like I said, if the Bullet didn't exist, or if I wanted an automatic transmission, I would totally have one of these. Absolutely, it is fantastic, and that's the highest endorsement I can give this thing. It is a blast, and I can't wait for people to start test driving these and experiencing them for themselves, because it's going to be really, really awesome. And I'm just glad that this vehicle still exists. That's the last thing I want to say here is, you know, there's a lot of people that are down on the Supra, and I understand some of the criticisms and stuff, and that's okay, but just keep in mind, you know, look at where we're going. We're going to EV everything. You know, the goal is robo-taxis in the future. You know, this might be the last of its type, at least from Toyota. And so if it came down to not having a Supra or having this, I mean, this is a phenomenal car on its own, and so even those haters should appreciate that. If you enjoy gasoline engines that crackle and pop like crazy and just all that fun stuff, you know, enjoy it while it's here. I'm just so happy that Toyota worked this out with BMW, and that they have this fantastic new Supra. I think the aftermarket's going to be hugely supportive of it as well. That should, you know, fix any other flaws that anyone has, you know, that they want to critique about it. And yeah, I think it's just fantastic. So anyway, that's enough of me, you know, sitting here just in love with this thing. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on the Supra in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.